Vickie, will you pray with me? Oh God, as we enter this season of Lent together, I pray that this may be a true time of reflection for us as we learn and grow together in your name. Amen. So I want to just say another thank you to Reverend Jean and to Bill Burkhardt for the beautiful display this morning representing gifts of the dark wood. So thank you. You're beautiful, talented, and lovely. You may be familiar with the English children's poem, There Was a Dark, Dark Wood. In the dark, dark wood, there was a dark, dark house. And in that dark, dark house, there was a... Okay, we got it? All right. So, the poem, Dark, Dark Wood. In the dark, dark wood, there was a dark, dark house. And in that dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark room. And in that dark, dark room, there was a dark, dark cupboard. And in that dark, dark cupboard, there was a dark, dark shelf. And on that dark, dark shelf, there was a dark, dark box. And in that dark, dark box, there was a ghost. We often associate the dark wood with something scary or mysterious or something to be avoided. So why would our Lenten theme be based on the dark wood? Well, the term is mentioned in Dante's Divine Comedy. It's one of the most celebrated and difficult poems ever written. It begins on the night before Good Friday in the year 1300. And allegorically, this poem represents the soul's journey towards God. But first, that soul passes through hell, and then through purgatory, before finally reaching heaven. And Dante's poem begins like this. In the middle of our life's journey, I found myself in a dark wood. It is a hard thing to speak of, how wild, harsh, and impenetrable that wood was, so that thinking of it recreates the fear. But in order to tell of the good I found there, I must also tell the other things I saw. This opening line suggests that Dante's journey is also a part of our life. We all find ourselves in a dark wood sometimes. The dark wood of emptiness, of uncertainty, of getting lost, of being thunderstruck. The dark wood of temptation, the dark wood of feeling like a misfit out of place. But in order to express and discover the good that we find even in those dark wood places, that is our purpose this Lenten season. And the dark wood is not something that we just can walk into one day by choice. Instead, it's something sometimes we just wake up one day and we realize that's where we are, in a dark wood. Maybe a successful career is just, we realize, sucked the life out of us. Others encounter a tragedy, a failed relationship, maybe a serious health issue, and that can totally shake our confidence in ourselves and in God. And some of us wake up in a dark wood just from sheer exhaustion. We realize we have too many obligations, we're committed to too many people, and we get caught in this web of obligation and guilt. And when we find ourselves in those dark wood moments, we often wonder, how can I find my way out? So if you've ever been, or if you currently feel yourself in a dark wood, know this, that you are actually in the best position possible to experience divine awakening and enlightenment. As hard as that moment is, you are in a position to be awakened and learn something new. So this morning, what about the dark wood of uncertainty? You know, I think in many ways we are actually enticed and addicted to uncertainty in our culture. We love suspenseful movies and television shows. And the more dramatic and the more suspenseful they are, the more we love them. We watch a whole season just to see who the Bachelorette is going to pick. In a whodunit murder mystery, the more suspenseful it is, the better. And then what about sports? You know, a lot of big tennis matches are played on Sundays, and I don't get to watch them. So I do everything I can to not listen to the radio or to talk to somebody who's a tennis player who's going to tell me, because it's just no fun watching a game when you know the outcome. And then what about the uncertainty of love? There's just something very exciting about meeting somebody new and falling in love and anticipating, does that other person feel the same way that I feel? You know, there's a cartoon I saw recently of a young man, and he's sitting with a daisy in his hand, and he's plucking out the petals. She loves me not. She loves me not. And he gets down to the very last petal, and he cries out, "Hey, there's something wrong with this daisy. It's missing a petal." There is excitement in uncertainty in so many ways. But what about when that uncertainty applies to our own lives, very intimately? For those of us who are type A personalities with perfectionist tendencies, and yes, I put myself in the borderline of that category, uncertainty can really be grueling. And psychologists say that is true. When we don't know and we wonder, it can produce all kinds of fear in us. For example, for me, sometimes the uncertainty of not knowing where my mom is when she hasn't answered my phone call for the third time makes me worried. Has she had another heart attack? The uncertainty of how we are going to meet our church budget worries me. The uncertainty of how we're going to pay for the roof. I worry every time I get ready to write a sermon. Am I going to get the inspiration that I need? And then there are the uncertainties about our own lives. How long do I have to live? Sometimes I wonder, will I get Parkinson's like my dad, even though I know it's not hereditary? But when I stumble or I'm clumsy, that uncertainty bothers me. Will my spouse or my friends die before me and leave me alone? As I get in my older age, will I be able to take care of myself? The Apostle Paul writes to the church at Corinth, "But we only know in part. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became an adult, I put away those childish ways. For we only do see in a mirror dimly. And now I only do know in part." And truly, uncertainty is a part of life. And in reality, would we really want it to be any other way? Would we want to know all the outcomes? If we all knew that Jay and Liz were going to win at bingo the other night, would we have even played that game? And who knew the lights were going to go out on us and the electricity, and playing in the dark, we probably would have rescheduled it, but we ended up having a good time. And if we really knew all that lies ahead of us in our own lives, would we ever really change anything, or would we want to know? Paul says, in essence, that a mature faith realizes that life is not a problem to be solved or a path to be dictated. Instead, life is a mystery. And we accept uncertainty then as a gift of life. So I wonder this morning, then what are some of the gifts of uncertainty? Well, uncertainty, first of all, allows us and gives us freedom to ask questions. If we knew everything that was certain, that would be so limiting. We would just take it for granted. But, for example, if we had remained certain that the earth was flat, we'd have never have discovered each other on the other side of the globe. And if we had always remained certain that the white race was supreme, then colonization and slavery would have never been questioned. And what about some of those church teachings we grew up with, right? Had they never been questioned, if we knew that they were just so certain, we would have kept going on with this dangerous and damaging theology. Certainty in anything can make us arrogant. It can make us hard, and it can make us unteachable. But when we have those experiences in the dark wood, those difficult times, though as painful as they may be, they will force us into places of uncertainty. And when we are in that midst of uncertainty, that's the time to challenge ourselves, to open up to new explorations. I say question everything. Question God. Question yourself. Question where in life am I going? Question what do I want out of life? And when we are in that dark wood of uncertainty, we are freed up to ask those questions, and we are freed up to change directions if we need to. I think uncertainty also forces us to trust. Jesus said, do not worry about your life. And I sometimes want to say, really, Jesus? Okay. Don't worry about our politics. Don't worry about our lives. Don't worry about all the tragedy that's going on in the world. I kind of hear Jesus saying, okay, just chill out. Don't worry. Pastor Jeff Strite from Indiana, my home state, told this story. He said that when his nephew Josh was younger, he was out in the yard and they were playing tag together. And he said his nephew tagged him and took off running, and his nephew was running and looking back and laughing while his uncle chased him. And he said, Josh turned around just in time to run into a tree. And when he did that, he, of course, hit his face and knocked some teeth loose, and he was bleeding, and he fell down, and they went inside, and he said Josh was just crying and crying uncontrollably. And he said his mother talked to him and said, Josh, your teeth are going to be okay. You're going to heal. It'll be fine. And Josh just continued to cry, and so Josh's aunt tried, and same thing. Josh just wouldn't hear it, crying. And so finally, Pastor Jeff said, let me try. And he said he sat on the bed, and he took Josh by his shoulders gently, and he said, Josh, look at me. And he looked at him, and he said, Josh, do you trust me? And Josh shook his head, and he said, I'm telling you, your teeth are going to be fine. You're going to heal up. He said, can you trust me in that? And Josh nodded his head. He wiped away his tears, and he went outside and started playing. All the reasoning in the world could not convince Josh that he was going to be okay. But he trusted in his uncle, and that convinced him. Jesus said, do not worry. Trust in me. I will take care of you. God will take care of you. Today, do you find yourself in the dark wood of uncertainty? If you are there, I encourage you to ask those questions. Be free to explore. And know that you can trust in God who will not let you down. And in that place, remember that the answers in life will come to you. Like that old hymn, By and By. We are often tossed and driven on the restless sea of time. Somber skies and howling tempests oft succeed a bright sunshine. In that land of perfect day, when the mists have rolled away, we'll understand it better by and by. And that chorus, by and by, when the morning comes, when the saints of God are gathered home, we'll tell the story of how we've overcome, for we'll understand it better by and by. Amen. During our Lenten season, we're going to ask you each morning after the sermon to take a time of reflection. So I'm going to invite you this morning to think about something that you are especially uncertain about today. Maybe it's something that you're really worrying about. And I want you to imagine that word or that phrase in the palm of your hand. I want you to close your hand and hold on to that uncertainty. And during our song of reflection, I'd like you to just release that and let that go. Let that uncertainty and that worry go to God in trust as we sing, My Heart Will Not Fear.